Welcome to the Decent Crypto Podcast. Today is Saturday, November 12th. FTX is dead. Matt, how you doing?
I'm feeling...
We don't know.
I logged off of Twitter. I took a break, man. I just can't handle anymore. I took a solid 4-hour break last night while I slept.
Dude, every episode, my friends are texting me yo, man, what's going on? And it's I literally don't know which piece of news you're referring to. Is it the thing that happened 20 minutes ago, or was there another thing 10 minutes ago? Apparently SBF is apparently just now has met with regulators and authorities in the Bahamas who just came to his residence. And apparently his father is also there. This is unconfirmed by this guy, Mario Now Fall. So yell at him, not us, if it's false. Matt, where do we even begin, dude? Our last episode is Binance buys FTX. Doesn't that feel like 4 lifetimes ago?
We may have some info that might shock the listener here, but Binance did not, in fact, buy FTX.
Not yet. Who knows? Chapter 11 will start. They might just pick off the assets they want.
Holy shit. I mean, okay, we should pick it up from there. So, all right. So Binance takes one look at the books and says, absolutely not, no.
So that episode was released 30 minutes after the news came out that Binance is buying FTX, or that they have entered some LOI to have the right to buy FTX if they want pending due diligence. Yeah. 12 hours later, some due diligence later, we find out that they are not going into this agreement. They're not going to go through with this deal. Price of FTT completely collapses right there.
Yeah. I think it's under 2 now. Which is pretty
that
wild
evening,
that it's above 0. Yeah.
I know, it's actually pretty insane. There's probably not enough liquidity to send it to 0, right?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends on the venue you're looking at, right? Okay, so let's just give a quick rundown of what happened, and then we can go into where we are today, right now, and then where we think we're going. And then some of the deeper conspiracies, I think, are definitely worth touching on.
The real things that we want to touch on.
Yeah, this is, after all, a conspiracy podcast.
This is a truth-seeking podcast.
Yeah, not conspiracy, truth. Okay, so Binance deal falls apart, and then it kind of feels and then SBF, I want to say, later that day, issues this gigantic apology thread. He says FTX has more assets than liabilities. Our number one priority is the user, and we're talking to a number of parties to try to find a way to get the user's liquidity. And then some estimates start coming out, right? It's probably worth touching on the SBF tweet thread, actually, just for a second. He said, "I'm sorry," a number of times, and it's
he kept saying, "I'm sorry." Yeah. So okay, let's now pause though. Binance looks at the books, right, and they say, "Yeah, no, we're good." Why would they do that, right? Why would they do that? What is this hole people are talking about, right? They're short money, they need to raise money. There's a hole. What's the hole?
So the allegation, and nothing's really confirmed, but it seems pretty much true. Well, actually now we've gotten some confirmation, right? Is that effectively, there was a backdoor within FTX, and, Alameda was able to just borrow capital without putting down any collateral as much as they desired. Unlimited access to FTX user assets.
So there was a backdoor that allowed specifically Sam Bankman-Fried to change certain data within FTX's, databases. I don't know exactly what this backdoor was, but it basically gave Sam the complete authority to do whatever he wanted with FTX funds, FTX user funds.
Yeah, full god mode, full root access, right? Yeah.
And it also did it in a way, apparently, I'm not exactly sure how this works because the mechanics have not been released, but it did so in a way that prevented auditors or even other internal controls from being flagged to this kind of thing, right? So that was like this central point of failure. We talked about is this guy, right, the CEO, who's also who was this former CEO of a hedge fund, who will go into why they were struggling, but like they needed access to a ton more money to cover, a gap in their balance sheet or whatever, to cover some losses. And he had basically root access to do that, and not really be asked why, or not really be asked for collateral or anything like that.
Yeah, Alameda effectively had the key to just access user funds from FTX, right? User deposits a dollar, Alameda gets to use that dollar any way they want.
I mean, it's not that clean, but yeah, if you look at it in a certain way, then yeah.
I mean, I thought it was that clean. Like Caroline from Alameda has said that like there was a backdoor and we could access user funds, directly. And
I think what she said is that they knew that there was a backdoor.
Oh,
but I
okay,
don't think I think it's been confirmed that only Sam Bankman-Fried for sure had access to it. SBF had access to that backdoor.
But if you're using that backdoor for like, to give those funds to Alameda, or loan them or whatever you want to call it, then like,
I think they were loaning them.
Complicit, right?
Are they complicit? Like that's something I asked in the last show too. Is like, are they complicit? Like I'm super interested because the former CEO after SBF was Sam Trabucco, who quit the industry a few months ago and bought a boat and has been living happily, he says, ever since. And so now it's like, this is interesting. So, I don't know where Alameda's role in this comes in, right? Like it's clear that she named names. I think she named Caroline. Actually, maybe she didn't, but Caroline has been okay. Well, I think she named she named herself, Sam. Like SBF, Sam Trabucco, Gary, this guy Gary, and one other person. But so that's like essentially why this gap exists, is because Alameda, or like Sam, had root access to FTX customer funds that he was loaning out to Alameda without going through any internal controls, without asking anybody else at FTX. At least that's the information that we're being presented so far. Like that's what we know so far. We don't know if anybody else had access or anything like that, but that's what we know for sure. And he did so for a total of, initially it was maybe $2 billion, then it was $4 billion, then it was $6 billion, then it was $8 billion. Now I think the total is about $9.7 billion, maybe up to $10 billion.
In the Chapter 11 filings, right, the like total assets and liabilities, there's like, boxes you can check for like the range of assets and liabilities, and the box that got checked was 10 to 50. So at the low end, 10, right?
That was FTX's total liabilities, right?
FTX and Alameda.
Okay, that was their total liabilities. I guess specifically talking about the loan that was made to them earlier this year, like a few months back.
Oh, okay,
yeah. I think that, I mean that could be. Who knows? That the real core of this is that we really don't have any idea.
There's zero transparency. So FTX starts going to the market, and Binance drops out, and FTX is looking for someone else to step in and like provide liquidity for users purportedly, but nobody's down, right? I want to say they were talking to Kraken at one point. Kraken was like, nope. They're talking to, like, they reached out to Elon Musk, and Elon was like, did you see this?
Yes.
Yeah. And Elon's like, yeah, this guy set off my BS meter. So I was just like, nah. I like refused to even meet him.
He literally just said no.
and then and so, this is all like prior to the Chapter 11 announcement, right? And meanwhile, user withdrawals are disabled for everyone outside of the Bahamas, because the Bahamas regulatory authority said, hey, like, you're not allowed to turn off withdrawals here, right? And so
Mm-hmm.
they had to keep these open for Bahamian residents.
Yeah.
And at that point, you hit a black market developed, where people would sort of handshake deal with someone that lived in the Bahamas, saying, hey, like, you can take 50% or whatever of my assets if you like allow me to use your like account to withdraw all of my assets, right?
Yeah.
So split 50-50. And there are limits on, I guess, the transfer amount, the amount of assets you can transfer from one user to another on FTX.
Yeah.
And the way they got around this was by
This is so
selling
brilliant.
NFTs.
Yeah. This is so
Yeah,
brilliant.
in the
Honestly,
FTX
just
marketplace.
straight up hats off. Like they would, basically the way it worked was the people that they eventually want to have all these funds, they would have them mint an NFT, and then they would purchase it from that person for like 10 million bucks or whatever. I don't know the exact examples of this, but that's basically how they would get the funds over, because you couldn't just transfer. So
The first confirmed non-speculative use case for NFTs. Let's go.
unbelievable, actually.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wild. So anyway, yeah, you got like people on Twitter like saying, hey, does anybody know a Bahamian resident? And like, it's questionable whether or not like that's legal, right? There might be clawbacks involved. Generally, like, I want to say, like, when Celsius and Voyager were going under, there was a lot of concern that like, if you pull your assets now, like, don't go spending that money because it might get caught back, right? I want to say it's like there's a several month period. It's like 3 months prior to like bankruptcy, where like if you pulled your assets off, like that can potentially get caught back. And like the question is, okay, like, if I have like $50 million sitting on FTX, and like I can either like illegally get maybe half of that value, or sit here and probably get zero, or pennies on the dollar. And maybe it's worth it to me to like take that legal risk.
For sure.
So
So then, yeah, these black markets are like, I mean, highly, highly illegal, but
yeah,
I mean, lucrative to people who think that they're never going to see that money again, and also just kind of have a penchant for being on the run, or not like necessarily caring about, jurisdictional, like,
yeah,
I don't know,
sovereign
code
individual
or
types,
whatever. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. Or I don't know,
yeah,
whatever you want to call them. But yeah, so yeah, there was this Algod trading guy who was like, I mean, notorious for the Luna bet that he made, but basically shorting Luna. He called out Do Kwon like like, I don't know when it was, March or something like that, and then he made a bet of 10 million bucks, and he won, obviously.
yeah,
But now he looks like he is kind of wrecked.
yeah.
He basically has just been like posting on Twitter about asking for KYC information and like wanting to get people to get his funds out. And all this is on chain. People called him out. It's like, doesn't seem like a smart move.
Yeah, but maybe he's going on the run now. Like, that's his best option at this point, or that was the
Yeah.
option. Feels like the option he chose, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So so
So
then
then what happens?
you have alternative ways of recovering value, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so Justin freaking Sun, man, this guy is like, what a character in the space, right? He tweets, hey, we're working with FTX to find a way to like help users recover value. SBF retweets it, which is absolutely wild. And so there's speculation that is Justin Sun going to buy FTX. Like, what? And then he's like, he specifies, he's like, for all holders of like Tron and Tron related assets, we will reimburse those tokens, off, outside of FTX for those holders.
Mm-hmm.
And so people see this and they're like, oh shit, I got to get all of my money into Tron.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And so Tron for a minute is
Obviously
trading at like
pumps.
20x the price. Yeah. On FTX only though.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And so, it's trading at like, yeah, like I think it was like 20 times the price on FTX relative to any other venue.
Uh-huh.
And so you've got that like wild like
I
story.
mean, the caveat there is that there's so little liquidity.
Yeah.
But yeah.
People are
Yeah.
seeing this as like, well, at least I can get 5% of my value, right?
Yeah.
So, and then meanwhile, everybody in the US thinks that they're okay because if you're on FTX US, it's like Sam has said so many times that like FTX
Yeah.
US is fine, it's unrelated, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then FTX declares Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh, FTX US is totally in that declaration
Is
too.
part of the declaration of bankruptcy. So I have seen in a few of these crypto lawyer tweet threads that are out there that they filed the whole thing as bankruptcy because now the next thing that'll happen is kind of like an asset fire sale, where everything will get liquidated, and then whoever wants to step in can now pick and choose the assets and the liabilities that they want to. And the idea there being that FTX is part of this bankruptcy filing because it's actually still maybe worth something, because it has pretty good licenses, like American licenses. It's got a good customer base. It has the options platform LedgerX, like previously LedgerX, and it has, I don't know, maybe some assets on the balance sheet. So
Yeah.
that
Well,
is
initially
the
the
idea.
speculation was that FTX US didn't have this backdoor, and therefore the assets on there were covered one-to-one by like assets in an actual like cold wallet.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd think that like they do have assets there, right?
Yeah.
Like some net assets, yeah.
Right. So so I guess the idea here is that like if these entities are all part of the bankruptcy filing, it makes the whole thing, I guess, a little bit more valuable. So I don't know. That could help cover the
Yeah, I mean
shortfall or something. I don't.
we're not bankruptcy lawyers,
We are
right?
not bankruptcy lawyers. Yes. Okay. So then, right. This whole thing is just about covering customer funds that have been gambled away by the management of the company.
Yeah.
Then
Should we touch on BlockFi?
Well, so real quick, then we find out that the Justin Sun, the stuff he's talking about, like covering customer funds, they're providing $13 million in total. so not many customers and not much funds will be covered.
Oh man,
so
that's brutal. On a
yeah.
hold that's like, in the billions likely, right?
Yeah.
Like,
On a related note, somebody just sent me this ad of Steph Curry and FTX basically saying he's not an expert in crypto and he doesn't need to be because FTX is the expert. Oh, it's not a great look. So many people are gonna look so bad. Oh man,
dude. Have you seen
the
Larry David? People are like, "Holy shit, Larry David knew." Remember the Super Bowl ad?
Wait, no. What was it?
The FTX Super Bowl ad where someone's like, "Larry, like you gotta get on FTX, man. It's like it's the best way to trade crypto." And he's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. And then he's like, I'm never really wrong about these things.
That's funny.
And then the rest of the ad was him being like, people being like, hey man, like check out this, like the invention of, he's going through history with like all the greatest inventions, like the wheel. He's like, I don't know. And then like the light bulb, he's like, I don't know. And then it's
funny.
like FTX. He's like, yeah, I don't really know.
That's pretty good.
I think I'm good.
Okay, so I completely forgot what we were. Oh, the Justin Sun $13 million whatever gap. Okay, then what happened next? So then FTX basically says like none of these solutions are actually going to work, and the next day they file for bankruptcy. I guess we already covered that with FTX US being part of the bankruptcy filing. They
Yeah.
filed like 136 different companies, like entities from all across the world. As part of it, I again have no idea how any of this works, but
I mean,
the
I
lawyers.
read through it and looked into it a little bit,
Mhm.
and like basically the companies are mostly crypto exchanges that FTX like acquired along the way,
Mm,
as well as like FTX and FTX related entities and Alameda related entities, right? But
mm.
one company that I thought was like really of note is called BitPesa. Do you know them?
Yes, they're from South America, right? Or no, they're from Kenya.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
And the reason I found this notable is did you ever hear about the Gary Gensler like gave a course on blockchain at
yeah,
MIT,
yeah.
and it's on the like MIT OpenCourseWare website. So
Right.
I watched that, and he talked a lot about BitPesa. He was like, look, it's a more efficient means of like storing and transferring value, digital
Mm,
currencies, right? And he
mm,
spoke about it like as like just a bull case on digital currency in general.
mm-hmm.
And it started out that people were using phone credits. You could transfer phone
Yeah,
credits
yeah.
like
It's like a
as
store
like
of
payment
value.
for each other. Yeah, exactly. And it was just like a more convenient store of value than like physical currency.
Yeah, because it
And for
kept getting
people,
devalued. Yeah. They're like,
yeah,
at least I
people
can
without
use this to
access,
talk on the
yeah,
phone. Yeah.
yeah, exactly. Really, really utility.
Yeah.
A utility token.
The original
um,
gas fees. Um,
So yeah, BitPesa was acquired by FTX apparently back in the day.
damn.
It's going under.
Damn.
That
That's
hurts to see,
brutal.
man, because
Yeah.
like those are people that can't afford to lose like a little bit of money, right? Like obviously like a huge number of people are down super bad. But like fuck, man, like BitPesa in particular, you really feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Um,
I mean, on a related note, Gensler, he was, it looks like he was really, really tied into FTX. He and SBF's dad are both professors at MIT, and they were working to get FTX and this other exchange that I really have never heard of called IEX. Um,
IEX is that was the Flash Boys exchange. You ever read Flash Boys by Michael Lewis?
oh, yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, IEX was the like fair exchange, right? The one with the speed bump.
Ah, okay, okay.
Yeah.
He was working to get them this. What is the term for it? Um,
I don't know. I haven't heard this.
oh, you haven't heard this? Okay, okay. They're
No.
working to get him a it's like regulatory loophole. God, what is it called, man? Um, I'll find it. I'll find it. It's some like loophole that was only going to be granted to these two exchanges.
Yeah,
That
and
would
that very much has
essentially like,
become. Mhm.
yeah, it essentially would like give them a monopoly to operate. Um,
That's become the narrative broadly around FTX and SBF's like political campaigns, right?
yeah, he was
And
also
like
working on
regulatory
this
campaigns.
DMCCA thing, which I
Yeah.
guess they're going through with now, even though it was written and supported by him. Um, super
uh,
interesting.
yeah.
Um, but anyways,
Like
yeah,
so the broad like uh the broad narrative around the like regulatory efforts by SBF has sort of slowly started to become he was using, who knows where the funds came from to like support all these efforts to effectively grant FTX monopolies
yeah,
on a lot of aspects of like the US crypto regulatory market.
yeah,
Um, Not great.
not
Uh,
great. Okay, so then the bankruptcy filing happens. Literally everything, all wrapped assets on Solana go to zero or very close to zero immediately
so
because people
wormhole
realize,
wrapped assets are okay, right? But Solid wrapped assets, which were like created by FTX, yeah, people realize
mm,
that they can't cash them out anymore. They're worth nothing, and so they go to like, I want to say like Bitcoin was trading at like a couple $100 or something. One of my friends texted me, and it's like, yeah, of course, like I wouldn't buy Solid wrapped Bitcoin at a couple $100.
yeah.
Um,
Okay, then the real fucking bombshell happens, which is that there is a hack happening at FTX, draining all wallets of all funds, basically.
Yeah.
That happened. Today is Saturday, November 12th, about 5 p.m. Eastern. This happened last night. Friday, late night Eastern time, like 2 a, like, I don't know, around midnight Eastern time. All these wallets just start getting drained. And it was really insane. Like, there's an up only stream happening, live stream happening with the head of FTX, like international, like
It's
institutional
institutional.
sales.
Yeah.
Yeah, institutional
Yeah.
sales. Yeah.
The
Um,
X head.
yeah. He was like, yeah, I got removed from all my Slack and everything. But yeah, so like the wallets all
This
started
poor
getting
guy, he
drained.
cared so much. He
I
was,
know
you
he
could
was
hear
so
the
in.
pain in his
Yeah,
voice. He was
yeah.
like, why aren't they tweeting about it?
He
Why aren't
felt
they
so
disclosing?
betrayed. He was like, why does FTX not tweet anything? And it's like, man. But yeah, initially it was like, okay, this is probably like maybe this is the liquidators, you know, they're like consolidating all these assets, just, you know, like compiling them into, you know, sending them to different wallets, and then they'll do whatever they need to. But then there was some really weird
Yeah, I
behavior.
mean,
Like they started
well,
exchanging
so
tokens.
the general counsel also tweeted something to that effect. Like, yeah, there's some
Yeah,
movements happening.
yeah,
We're
yeah, yeah.
consolidating assets, right? Yeah, but then, yeah, you're right. Like there's some strange actions happening. There's a lot of swaps happening, right?
Yeah, it's like they're going to 1 inch and starting to make trades. It's like
just
really weird. And like,
like high slippage, like, like, so the one exploiter address got like $300 million worth of assets as of like a couple minutes ago. That was like the total. And then there's another address happening, which is a multi-sig, and everyone's like, what the fuck's going on there, right? Like, I forget who it was, but someone tweeted like, look, I've looked at a lot of crypto exploits. I've never seen one where the hacker sent the funds to a multi-sig after,
it's
like, what?
so weird, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So here's the thing. We have a lot of loose bits of information now, right? There's a backdoor. There is unilateral control over all assets that points to only one guy. And then there is a hack on an exchange that has never been hacked in its history, hours after they file for bankruptcy. Um, just saying.
I mean, so the thing about it is, right? Like, say you're an attacker, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a little bit like it's the digital equivalent of, like, you've been casing the house, right? You see that the homeowners are going on vacation, right? Because, like, everyone at FTX is getting fired left and right, or quitting, like resigning, like, the office is supposedly like a ghost town, right? And maybe there's some security thing that needs to be done like every 24 hours or something, and you keep checking, and that, like, it's that like whoever was supposed to be doing that process is no longer working. They're like completely just like lost access to Slack, and the company itself has been radio silence, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
SBF has been radio silence, and
He
so
just writes
that,
random tweet
like,
threads, and then in one of them, that was the most unhinged thing I've ever seen, where he's like calling out CZ. He's like, "Yeah, man, you won." It's like, bro, what? Focus
nobody
on
won.
other things.
Yeah.
Yeah, literally
Yeah.
nobody won. Focus on other things. Maybe your ex partner who's chilling on the boat still, if he's still chilling on the boat, he won. Um,
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like, I mean, anyway, so so a few things happen with this exploit, right? So number
mhm,
one, you have what looks like a black hat address, right? And I'm using that term because I don't know, like less like color or like racially charged term, but I genuinely hate black hat, white hat. So
yeah, I see.
if anyone knows like the better terms for this, I'd love to know them.
Sure.
Um, so you have what looks like the exploiter, right? They
Hmm.
send themselves about $300 million worth of funds, and then they swap them all to ETH. They're bridging them over to ETH. Like, it would have been to Tornado Cash, but like maybe that's not viable these days. And they're just sitting on $300 million worth of funds, right? Don't touch USDC. I think they touched Tether for a little bit, and some of the Tether got frozen. And but they're mostly working with DAI and ETH. Um, then then you have another address, this multi-sig, and that looks like it was like a white hat group who like must have known about the same exploit and like decided to like take charge and at least get some of the assets back. Or maybe that was just FTX internally rearranging things for the liquidation process. That's another
And
option.
and what confirms that they're white hat? Just because they haven't sold anything, or like
Yeah, they haven't sold anything, and or like the most likely scenario, I think, in my opinion, is that it's actually just FTX rearranging things for the liquidation process
makes
following
sense,
like
yeah.
bankruptcy proceedings.
Oh, speaking of which,
Um,
the liquidator or the new CEO brought in to handle the bankruptcy is the man who was brought in to handle the Enron bankruptcy. Just
wow.
incredible, incredible.
Yeah.
I texted my buddies that the authors of the simulation are working overtime this week. They
No,
all
man,
need a
they're phoning
raise.
it in.
Oh
The
man,
simulation probability, I don't know about you, I feel like it's tripled over the last week, right? To
yeah,
like 60%, right?
definitely.
So
Definitely. If we get a live stream, if we get a live Twitch stream of Up Only with SBF, Do Kwon, and Suzu, then yeah, simulation
I mean,
confirms. And then
you ever
Elon will
watch
jump in.
you ever watch SNL and at the end they have like all the cast members and they're all just kind of enjoying, and the closing music plays like at the very end of the episode.
Hmm.
That's what it'll be like. It'll be like, thanks for playing, everyone. Crypto's done now. And all the main characters come on stage and take a bow. Like,
uh,
uh,
that's really funny.
but
Um,
like
okay,
so
so
so anyway, so you have these two wallets, right? So what looks like the malicious actor is they've got like 300 million worth of assets. The what looks like non-malicious, somewhat benign actor, I don't know if you can even call them benign if they are
hmm
actually FTX.
yeah,
They have something closer to like 1.3 billion is like the closest estimate I got on Etherscan and SoulScan, but
hmm
it might be closer to 1.5. And like that might actually just be the full, because it looks like the FTX wallets are drained completely now, right? Like the ones that were labeled as FTX, as far as
hmm
we know. Um, and so that might actually just be the sum total of like their assets, right? Then you have a third thing, which is the app. The app pushes out an update, right? And we don't have a ton of information right now, but the rumor or theory is that this update also contains some like malicious code or something. And so Twitter was like ablaze with like, hey, delete the FTX app, like don't update it, like because if you were like a hacker that like knew you could like push like a malicious code update, now is a great time to do it when nobody's home, right? And a lot of people are reporting like zero balance on their FTX account, even though they like had balance
very,
before.
very scary. Yeah,
Yeah, and what people are concerned about now is like, what if FTX, like, if you enabled like ACH access to your bank account, like, how do you handle that? Do you need to call your bank, right?
yeah.
Banks are closed right now. What's going to happen on Monday? It's super scary. And then a lot of people were floating this rumor that like if you took your computer to ftx.com, it was going to install like a virus, right? No, I haven't seen any hard evidence of that. But it's effectively like nobody's home, nobody's in charge. We haven't heard anything from anyone.
Yeah.
Like you got to really be careful and suspicious when it comes to anything FTX related right now.
There's some very yeah. I would not. I absolutely not trust anything at all. Now let's get into some fun theories. Some truth-seeking ideas, shall we call them? Uh, the I'll start. Uh, so
Please.
my favorite one is from May 8th, Hasaka Trades on Twitter. says, pure conjecture. Feels like we saw some of the biggest firms engage in unholy warfare yesterday. Stage had been perfectly set. Low liquidity weekend, depeg fears, macro backdrop, corn, referring to Bitcoin, teasing around key levels, etc. We all know how much redacted, referring to Alameda, loves to initiate a cascade. And then he tweets out some like photo of like mystical gods or some shit. This was the day of the Luna collapse, day after. So the idea here is that SBF is the one and Alameda is the one initially triggering the Luna depeg, the UST depeg. This is out of some like old vengeance spite towards Suzu in specific, who he like there's these old tweets about Suzu just shitting on Alameda in 2019 about how these guys are like he refers to them as like Bernie Madoff, like back in like 2019. Yeah, so Suzu, like people are like resurfacing all these tweets from 2019 about him like sharing around the pitch deck and saying like, what the fuck is this? This is all bullshit. Like, don't trust these guys. And then he even tweets out when they're launching FTX, he was like the same guys like sharing a pitch deck about like risk-free returns and their hedge fund are now trying to launch a BitMEX competitor. Like, what the fuck? So then the theory goes that Sam has this like personal vendetta towards Three Arrows Capital, Suzu. We covered this in the Terra Luna deep dive that we did once it collapsed. But this all got triggered because there was this like a few hour window where the pool, like the tri-party pool, curve pool, it gets like rebalanced basically, and there's like way less UST in there, and so during that time basically somebody kind of triggered this attack, which caused it to depeg and like basically caused this massive cascade after, because of the Luna collapse. Soon after, Three Arrows Capital collapsed, leading to a ton of other contagion in the market. Yeah, that's a theory. Yeah, I love it. And then it goes, CZ, the theory goes, knew about this all along, and reached out to Sam and basically tried to, convince him to not do this. SBF did not listen, which basically triggered CZ to go full nuclear against Alameda, FTT, and FTX.
So this is really interesting because, I was talking to someone earlier today. I was like, hey, like, one thing I don't understand is if you're CZ, right, you're the earliest investor in FTX, right, and you decide you want some liquidity, right? So you ask, hey, can I sell my equity stake and get some tokens in exchange? And Sam says, yeah, for sure. Here's $2 billion worth of BUSD and FTT, right? Mm-hmm. And this is what CZ tweeted about. He's like, we got $2 billion worth of FTT and BUSD. And I was like, I don't understand why it's any better. Like, why would you want FTT rather than FTX equity, right? FTT is like a pseudo equity token that's like arguably tied to the performance of FTX as an exchange, because it's exposed to their like revenue or net income or whatever, right? But like, it's so much cleaner to just have an equity stake, right? Yeah. Like, if you really wanted liquidity, why wouldn't you have already started selling that off? Mm-hmm. And the person I was talking to was like, well, maybe CZ wanted to have something that he could pull the trigger on, some kind of, a chip that he could play in case things went wrong. to
Yeah.
have some kind of power over FTX, because if you have FTX equity, you can't do anything about
Right.
that with that, right? But if you have
Mm-hmm.
FTT, you can sell that, or even just like threaten to sell that into the open market,
Mm-hmm.
kicking off this cascade that would bury FTX like we're seeing today.
Yeah.
Which is, that's 4D chess.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Look, here's one thing I'll finish this thought with. There are many rumors that Hasaka is CZ. Of course, who knows with Anons, but
Wait, what? There
oh
are?
yeah. For years, this has been a massive rumor. But anyways, I don't believe it. But anyways, this guy doesn't miss that often. He's right
He's
quite a
good.
lot. He's good.
Yeah.
Who knows? We may never know. All right, Matt, you have one that you like. What's your conspiracy?
I guess it was that it was this, like, CZ was just wielding this power over SBF the entire time. But I have another. Oh no, I have another one. One. This is fucking wild.
Okay.
So we forgot to cover a little bit of the contagion. I think we should touch on that real quick. So FTX declares bankruptcy, and then it's like, before FTX declared bankruptcy, it's mirroring Luna quite a bit, where, like, everyone's like, look, don't worry, we have very little Luna exposure or no Luna exposure. And then Luna tanks. And when it actually goes to zero and is good and dead, everyone has to kind of slowly admit, like, what their actual Luna exposure was.
Right.
FTX declaring Chapter 11 is like that actually cemented going to zero moment that like forced a lot of people to start to own up to, like, whether or not they did have exposure to FTX.
Yeah.
And so, there's funds like Gala Capital, like they had half of their balance sheet on FTX. That hurts, right?
Same with Star Atlas.
You have projects like Star Atlas that were keeping a lot of their assets on FTX, right?
Yeah, Multicoin, 10% of their assets on FTX, plus basically all of their tokens were like either liquid or illiquid Solana-based shitcoins, specifically around SBF. Like, I don't even know how much they had in FTT or in Serum or in Solana, or so there is a ton. So like a ton.
Well, I think and then you have BlockFi, right? Like BlockFi Voyager, which were both going to get acquired by FTX. Like, now they're not, and so BlockFi halted all operations, right?
The rumor is that BlockFi
right?
had all of their treasury on FTX.
On FTX, well, so BlockFi was insolvent until Sam offered to jump in and like bail them out, and so now that FTX is under, BlockFi as a result is under, because they were only solvent as a result of like the role. I think it was like a $250 million like line of credit that FTX extended to them, right?
What's the story of DCG?
It was it DCG or
Genesis, right? Genesis said they're losing like $175 million in loans that they made to FTX.
I think DCG said that they can cover it though, so at least there's that.
Look, if DCG goes down, then we might as well all just pack it up. Like DCG, Barry Silbert is him and CZ are the two final bosses, and
I heard USDC FUD yesterday, and one of my friends was like, dude, I'm hearing a little bit of FUD around USDC, and I'm like, all right, this has to be the bottom.
Great local bottom.
But like, let's hear it out. Right? He's like, it wasn't like anything super specific. I was like, are you concerned that like the assets are not backed, or like, are you concerned about like them like just being able to like freeze stuff, like centralization risk? My friend was like, yeah, like a little bit of both. I don't know. I'm just like I'm hearing rumors. I just wanted to like, get your take, right? And my take was, and he was like, look, like I have some value. I want to keep it in crypto assets. Like what do you think? And I was like, well, if USDC goes under, right? Like, say USDC is not backed 1-to-1. Say it turns out that USDC is only backed like 70 cents on the dollar, right? The price of USDC in dollar terms goes down by 30%. how far do you think Bitcoin and Ether fall in that scenario? Probably more than 30%.
90%. Yeah.
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 So I was like, you might as well hold USDC
It's a good
because,
point.
you know, where do you think Tether goes in that scenario? Right? Like maybe it goes above $1
Yeah,
because everyone's
Tether's
like,
holding
oh,
up.
maybe it's more
Yeah.
stable, right? But maybe
Right.
not, right?
Yeah.
You know, like in the nuclear winter, like scorched earth world, like I guess you might as well just hold USDC,
That's the
or
summary of
Bitcoin.
this podcast. Either hold USDC or Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think my friend chose to like do a little bit of both.
It's a great
Uh,
play. So Matt,
so
what are you looking for
so
now as this
so
story?
here's the conspiracy. Okay, one other player that had all of their assets on FTX was the government of Ukraine.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Whoa. Where's
So
that coming from?
remember when they raised all these crypto donations? That part's
Yeah.
confirmed, right?
Yeah.
Like they tweeted it out, like, yeah, we had our crypto assets on FTX, right? Wrecked. Here's the conspiracy part. You have the government of Ukraine's funds being spent on US Democrat politicians by SPF.
Wow.
Yeah,
I mean,
that
that sounds like a truth-seeking fact.
I mean, that's the thing, right? It's like
Oh
it's
man,
actually like according to everything we know, that's pretty true.
it seems
um,
quite
if
plausible.
if
Yeah.
not intentional, it is probably true.
Yeah.
Like with you know, like one part's true, which is that yeah, like the government of Ukraine's like money's gone, right? And the other part that's true is that like SBF spent a bunch of money on like U.S. politicians,
Yeah.
and it's unclear whether the two are linked or what, but that's the linkage is where the conspiracy lies, right?
That
What?
is wild. That is why it's just breaking my brain. That has to be where we leave it. Oh man, this has been Conspiracy Hour by the Decent. I'm just kidding. Now we'll be back in
Conspiracy tinfoil Matt.
tinfoil
Yeah.
Matt. Yes, I love it. We'll be
Oh
back in
shit!
a couple days.
What
We
are you
need to
looking
be.
for? Anything in into the future?
Yeah.
Like,
So
what do you think happens next?
yeah. Okay. So here are the things that I am looking for. I First of all, I want to find the exact whereabouts of all these people. I don't know if that's the first thing we'll find. Um, but at this point, it seems like from the FTX perspective, right? This is going to bankruptcy. I also want to see any more on-chain activity around the wallets, right? If any more funds get transferred, trying to get some clarity around that, right? Like, was it a real hacker? Is it like, oh, this thing we didn't mention, the Kraken CTO said they know the identity of the hacker. So yeah, kind of want to find that out. That'd be great.
Yeah, the
So
wish
yeah,
list, the facts wish
yeah,
list.
exactly. The facts
Yeah.
wish list. And then would love to see a few people in jail, that is my wish list. What's your wish list?
Yeah. I mean, I'd love to. Uh, I'd love to know how Alameda lost so much fucking money. That's my wish list, right? Oh, the other thing that makes me think that Alameda is complicit, just real quick, right, is
Mm-hmm.
that like they were getting money delivered to them from FTX. So either
Mm-hmm.
Sam had a backdoor on both ends, or someone at Alameda was complicit, right? And like not, you know, like we've got like Caroline saying that like several people knew.
Mm-hmm.
Like maybe Sam's the only one with the keys, but like someone from Alameda is like accepting those deposits or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
How did they lose so much fucking money, right? Like what were they doing?
That is
Um,
true. How did they lose so much money? That's wild.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I would love to know like what went wrong there. Um, man, it's brutal, right? Like a lot of people like real quick, and then I think we can sign off. But like, do you think this is more or less damaging than Luna?
Way, way, way more.
Yeah, I had a friend text me like, oh, it's like not as many billions as Luna was, right? But like, it's obviously, I mean, I agree. It's like way more damaging. Why do you think that is?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so like it's way more billion than Luna, but it's like, I mean, Luna rose to a crazy market cap, right? Not that like people had put in that much money, right? It's not that people inserted $20 billion of value into this ecosystem.
Right.
Right. It's like, for the most part, this was like a thing that was a market cap of 20 million or whatever. And then a bunch of people, like the actual supply, like the liquid supply of the tokens was way less than the full market cap. And like, you know, people pumped the price up. And so like the actual value destroyed, I don't think was that much compared to FTX. I think like users losing their full balance, I think is way more detrimental. And, I also think that from a trust perspective, right? Like Luna it's one thing because it's a piece of tech that failed because of certain reasons, right? Because of mostly human reasons, but it's a piece of tech that failed, that was tried and failed. And yeah, maybe the founders said some misleading things, and they can be like, for sure, like they should be liable for that. But when a company engages in practices that are like so detrimental to so many people that it like causes a whole industry to like get cut in half, basically, and the effects are this far reaching where like businesses are affected, other protocols are affected, like so many retail people, like customers are affected all across the world. I think this is way worse.
Yeah, I think from a sheer just like number of humans impacted perspective, this is much bigger.
Yeah.
Right?
Also, it's complete. It's like it's clear fraud. It's clear,
yeah,
like direct
the
fraud.
thing,
There's no
yeah.
question here, right? There's no like, oh, like okay, like how much should you? Because like you could make the argument with Luna, right? I'm not saying this is something I believe, but you could say like, oh, any startup says that, you know, like my thing is the greatest thing in the world. Like, should we hold them liable to every single thing they say there? But this is like you're literally doing something that is against the law. So
yeah, this is pure fraud.
Yeah.
Whereas with Luna, you can, you know, maybe certain statements or whatever were technically fraud, but you know, it wasn't a fraudulent protocol.
Yeah.
Right. It might have had like, it might have been built to fail, or, you know, it might have been built in a way that it was inevitable that it would fail. We're not gonna like, you know, I don't think so, but like, you know, that's so different from just fraud.
Yeah. It's going to take a while, but the Decent Crypto podcast will be here throughout. So yeah, have a great weekend if you can, everybody. Stay safe out there. We'll be back in a few days to cover probably everything happening with FTX and one more deep dive next week. I was thinking it'd be fun to do something around like how does a liquidation engine actually work? Kind of fun. But yeah, we'll be back. Have a great weekend, everybody. Till then, stay decent.
None of this was financial advice, legal advice, investment advice, or any other kind of advice. If you're looking for advice, you are definitely in the wrong place. Until next time, stay decent.